Hey, Twisted people. It's your Twisted Woman here, Chauncey K. Robinson, and thank you so much for joining me as I am talking about Titans, Season 3, Episode 5, Lazarus, or the Red Hood episode, pretty much, because it was the Red Hood episode. It was the Jason Todd episode, more so. Thank you all who are joining me, who will be joining me in the live chat today, and those of you who are joining in the replay. It's always a pleasure to be talking story with you all because we got to talk about this one because it happened, but more so also talk about it because, well, there's things to talk about. In the last one where I did episodes 1 through 4, okay, it was kind of like a mega breakdown of what's happened in season 3 thus far. I put a lot out there in terms of my thoughts on the show, right? I'll be honest with you, for those who don't know, I do feel like Titans at times feels like the Batman light show. And it has felt like that for pretty much maybe from season 2 onward. I think season 1 was, in my opinion, one of the strongest. I mean, out of the two, season 1 and season 2, I think season 1 was a stronger season. And I think season 2 was a downgrade just because for whatever reason they did some kind of weird soft reboot and not for the better. And I think for whatever reason in season 2, they had decided the core 4 that they picked in season 1 wasn't who they really wanted to focus on. And that didn't get a very good response from those of us, from I think viewers in general who were there for the core 4 of season 1. And so I think season 3 is kind of maybe sort of perhaps bringing us back into this of maybe kind of being a little bit more level with what season 1 was, but it's not without its issues, which is what we're getting with this episode. Now, to put it out there, I actually like Red Hood as a character, as someone who loved the animated movie Under the Red Hood, which was my jam. Jensen Ackles played Red Hood, did the voice of Red Hood, and it is one of my fave Batman movies, Under the Red Hood, because I think there's so much there in terms of the potential of Red Hood, of future stories with Red Hood. I think there's a lot of potential with this character. And as you saw from the title of this video, and I want y'all to let me know also in the replay in the chat, there's the question of, is Red Hood redeemable? Because I think a lot of people in the first 4 episodes of this season were wondering, is Red Hood redeemable? So we're going to get into that as well in this one, in this review and breakdown, because I feel like that's kind of the crux of this, right? Because you have a whole episode dedicated to this character of Red Hood, and you kind of have to talk about whether or not this character deserves a whole episode, and whether or not through the grapevine, it seems to be kind of happening through the grapevine that Red Hood may be getting his own spinoff, right? That we may be getting a Red Hood spinoff. Do I think that's premature? Yes, indeed. I think that's a premature thing to give Red Hood a spinoff. I think it was premature to bring Red Hood in the first place in season 3 when we haven't even had a whole season of Titans being a full team yet. So I think the show is being so quick to set up certain things they want to do in the future that they're not paying as much attention to the present that they need to be paying attention to. And that's fine. There are issues with that. But, in this one, I kind of want to talk about Jason Todd, because that's kind of who we want to talk about, right? Or who we have to talk about. Because first and foremost, let's put it out there. We didn't see anybody else, right? We had the wonderful episode. Last episode was a really solid episode. We got to see Gar and Corey go find Blackfire and that was really great to see. It was an episode titled Blackfire, but unfortunately it wasn't solely focused on her. And that's my other issue with this episode, with episodes like this. They've done this before. I didn't mind it in season 1 when we had a whole episode of Hank and Dove, because also in season 1, I think there was words through the grapevine that they were going to try to do a Hank and Dove spinoff. And so Hank and Dawn spinoff. So, the fact that they did that, okay. Then they did another similar thing in season 2. And by then I was just kind of over it. I was like, at some point we need to stop in a 13 episode season, which means you don't have a lot of time. We need to stop having episodes that don't really move the plot forward. Especially when they take you out of the main characters and you have a whole episode with a character that's not even necessarily the main character that you have. And I do feel like this episode fell right into that category, and I don't think it needed to. For whatever reason, we had last episode where Blackfire should have been probably all focused in on Corey and Gar finding Blackfire. Yet, in an episode titled Blackfire, we ended up having to deal with, once again, Red Hood and Nightwing. And I don't know what it is about this show that Nightwing, Jason Todd, and even Hank and Dove, and even I think Donna, maybe. I think Donna got her own flashback too. That all these other characters can get flashback episodes or episodes where they are the main plot line. Yet I have yet to get a whole episode where Corey is the main focus, or where Gar is really the main focus. We kind of had the one in season 1 where Rachel meets Gar. So that was his way of being introduced. But that lacked too, especially since in season 2 we didn't got that. We even had a whole Connor episode, right? Yeah, and I didn't mind that because I love Connor. I love Crypto. Those are my boys. But it seems weird to me, season 3, and I'm getting a whole episode about Jason. Hey, Ray, thanks for joining us in the chat. Ray is saying this fills in all the blanks for what happened with Jason, and I'm satisfied that he legit died. Yes, we did find that out. We did find out that Jason legit died. And so we're going to talk about some of the things that happened. And, like I said, the main crux of this discussion is, in my opinion, because we're hearing through the grapevine that Red Hood may be getting his own spin-off show at some point. Is the Red Hood character redeemable to the point where he should be getting a whole show, and to the point where we should be thinking of him other than anything than a villain when it comes to what he's done to Titans, what he did to Hank? Y'all, Jason killed Hank. That happened like 2 episodes ago. It wasn't that long ago. It wasn't 2 to 3 years ago. He killed Hank recently. He killed our boy Hank recently. So we got to talk about it. Although I will say y'all may be surprised on my thoughts on whether or not he's redeemable. But yeah, so we got this Jason Todd episode, and we got a little bit more of Crane. So the main things I feel like we got a little bit about my boy Bruce, Batman, that I felt showed him in a better light. For those of you who know, I'm a Batman girl. And I have not particularly cared for the way they've tried to portray him in these first couple of episodes, or the way that they're allowing a point of view from certain characters to shade Bruce Wayne and Batman's mission. And I will say this episode showed a better side of Bruce, and a more layered, and I think a bit more of a balanced view of his take on things. It doesn't mean that he's perfect, but no one was trying to say Batman is perfect, right? It's not the Superman complex, but that he's not some Machiavellian person who's abusing kids or something like that. So I think this episode did do that. So I will say that was a plus for me with this episode. Hey, Deb, thanks for joining us in the chat. Deb is saying, I was so excited for this episode because I was expecting to see what happened with Corey and Blackfire, not a whole Jason episode. I know, right? And this is why it's good to check what these things are saying when it comes to the description of each episode, right? As I was saying, this was a whole Jason Todd episode. And I have an issue with the show that has only 13 seasons and so many characters, that they can pause everything and put a whole episode to a character on flashbacks that doesn't really move the plot forward. It was okay in season 1. It doesn't make so much sense to me in season 3 at this point. Ray is saying, I think this is more about trauma and the drugs he was on, Jason Todd, that caused this. And they do try to put that on. And we have to talk about, there were things put out in this episode where one can say that there was an effort in a way to maybe not necessarily redeem Red Hood or Jason, but to give a legitimate reasoning for what he did that was beyond the idea of he's just a bad guy, to leave some space for that, right? And I think the question is, do you think this episode actually achieved that? So I want y'all to let me know in the replay, in the comment section or in the chat, do you think, let's put it out there, do you think Jason Todd Red Hood is redeemable? Do you think this is a character that can be redeemed? Or do you think this is a character that at the end of the day, the Titans should fight him, they should beat him, and we should not have to deal with Red Hood anymore? Maybe some other time he can come along later to get redeemed. But as of now, he's the villain. That's that. So let me know your thoughts. Okay, so what we got was Crane kind of being revealed as somewhat of the mastermind in all this. That even though Jason Todd and Crane are working together, Crane seems to be the one pulling a lot of the strings. And we saw that in the flashbacks as well. One could argue that Crane pretty much set Jason up to be killed by Joker, and brought back to life, got him addicted on those drugs, on the drug of the anti-fear and all of that. And so we see that Crane is playing a bigger part than just simply being used by Jason Todd. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I kind of did almost like the idea that Jason Todd maybe was the one controlling things, and that he kind of had a master plan of what he wanted to do, as opposed to he goes from, because the thing about Jason Todd's character is that he's a broken character in a way. And he's been that for some time. You know, we even got that backstory again about how he lost his parents. Two-Face killed his father. His mother died of a drug overdose, things like that. And here he is now addicted to a drug, you know, of some kind. And he's had a tough life. You know, he was in orphanage. He just wants to kind of be accepted by Bruce. At one time he wanted to be accepted by Grayson. And, you know, he fell for Rose. There's a lot going on there for this character. That doesn't excuse anything that he's done, not even in this episode, but in other episodes where he would act a certain way. But he also has PTSD after what happened with Deathstroke, which, you know, is sometimes not necessarily a topic explored in superhero franchise stuff, where, you know, you have these superheroes, they go and do stuff all the time, they fight these people, but we don't necessarily talk about what happens sometimes after the fact. Are they still, are they having bad dreams? Or when they have near-death experiences, does that stick with them, or they just kind of move on because why not? They're a superhero. But I did like the fact that with Jason's character, they do take that more realistic, albeit kind of grittier approach of a character that's dealing with, you know, a near-death experience, and he didn't just simply get over it and move on to the next thing. So I won't fault them for that, because I think that's a very a good angle to take. I do feel like they might lean on it a little bit more for some of the decisions he makes, but it's not necessarily out of the ordinary for someone to make decisions like that, when really, you know, when people deal with PTSD and trauma and things, you know, it can do something to your brain, and it can make you get to a point where you'll do whatever you can to kind of stop feeling the way you feel sometimes when it comes to stuff like that. So we get this thing where Jason is basically a guy who is being controlled by his fear. He ends up having, you know, Bruce ends up wanting him to go to therapy. There's a whole thing. He meets Leslie Tompkins, who also knows Scarecrow. It's a whole thing. And, you know, he seems to be getting better, you know, to a certain degree. And I feel like Bruce, for his part, was trying to be a good dad. You know, he even calls Jason's son a few times. And I feel like he was telling Jason, like, you don't have to be Robin, basically, to keep my money. Like, you are still my son. I've adopted you. I will raise you. You can live in the Bat thing and all this other stuff. I mean, I think you can live in Wayne Manor. I'm not kicking you out because you're not Robin. I just don't think you can deal with doing this. And I think he had good reasoning for that, you know, though the question of Gotham. I think I like that they had in this episode, Bruce being more self-aware, or at least more aware than what they were giving him credit, what they seemingly were giving him credit for, or not giving him credit for in the first couple of episodes, like how Barbara and others had characterized him. as being someone who didn't know and was just taking these kids and ruining their lives. But it's very clear he's not doing it like that. You know, he thinks he's doing something to help them. Ray is asking, is this like canon Scarecrow? Because I don't recall this character being this kind of methodical genius in this way. I feel like this would be more Mad Hatter or Hugo Strange. I think it depends. Scarecrow was more of, I mean, the idea that Crane, and he does mention this, the idea that he wants to spread fear and terror in Gotham is in line with him, right? His whole, in the comics and stuff, it was like purely through the gas and everything like that. So I think there's some aspect, but he is a genius, right? He knows how to get into people's heads. So in a way, I do think it's somewhat canon. I feel like it aligns with him in terms of how he's treating Jason Todd and stuff, that Machiavellian kind of pulling his strings and stuff, maybe some other characters, but I do think he has done, I do agree with you that maybe more Mad Hatter-ish, but I think it aligns well enough. I'm not saying, I don't think he's completely different, like 180 from what Scarecrow is capable of if they wanted to go that route. Ray is also saying, I would rather Red Hood be his own character, a man like in canon with like Rebel with the cause. That makes him a fan favorite. I agree. And that was my thing as well. I didn't know if I really liked the idea that they had it. So he was, once again, he had all this brokenness and he went from kind of being dependent on being, you know, under Bruce and Batman, and at one time Dick and Nightwing, to now being dependent on Scarecrow and Scarecrow's plans. And none of these times, and maybe that's where the transition is going to come in. Maybe if they choose to truly redeem Jason, maybe it's when he comes out from under this situation and he decides, I'm not going to keep following someone. I'm going to make a way for myself somewhere else. Maybe that's what he ends up choosing to do. Maybe that's his redemption arc, his chance for the redemption arc. But as it stands, he went from being under these other people's shadows to now basically being under this person's puppeteering. So he's still not an independent guy. So one could argue, is he really Red Hood just yet? Yes, he's Red Hood in name and things, but is he really the Red Hood, like is mentioned, the rebel with the cause, the gritty kind of person that he ends up being and that many people have come to like of Red Hood? Is he that yet? Because to me, that would probably be the one they're trying to get for a spinoff, or at least his own thing, because the current one is still a puppet. And that's not who Red Hood is. You know, the Red Hood people have come to like, because there is a different version of Red Hood, but like the Red Hood that people kind of know, the mainstream Red Hood is one that kind of had a purpose, right? And that wasn't just working with this supervillain type thing. So what we get is that Jason is not taking fear toxin, he's taking anti-fear toxin, but clearly this fear toxin not only dulls his fear, it also dulls his other emotions. Now, do I think that's a little bit of a cop-out? No. I mean, I think it's very clear that this drug is doing things to him, and he's addicted to it. And I think that once again is a play on reality where people get addicted to things and they act differently. You know, different things happen. They aren't as nice as they used to be, or because all they can think of is the next hit and things like that. So I think it goes along. I don't think it's enough. This whole thing of him being addicted to the fear, to the anti-fear toxin, the PTSD, all of that. I don't think it necessarily not justifies, but I don't think it necessarily excuses what happened with Hank. And he killed some people. He killed that mother. He had that mother kill herself, all this other stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's not okay. So, and I don't think his past issues actually, you know, does anything better to excuse that. We also got the Lazarus Pit. Oh my gosh, the comic people, the Lazarus Pit was in there, which was also very cool. So that was good. That was a good, comic book reference, despite its location, the Lazarus Pit. And, so that was cool. And then we have, basically this was an emotional episode for Red Hood. it was a whole flashback episode. There's this girl named Molly that he kind of knows that he was working with. She told him to get some help, but he's like, things are going to get worse before they get better. He's on a dark path right now. The question is, did we need a whole episode about this? And that's my first question. And I want y'all to let me know. Do you think, let me know in the replay and also in the chat, do you think we needed a whole episode, no other plot line from any of the other Titans? Do you think we needed a whole episode of this with Jason Todd? Because that's my first question. I'm going to say, no, we did not need a whole episode of this. I would have been fine if this was interwoven with some other stuff. Like maybe, while another plot line is going on, maybe, I don't know, with Starfire. Or even with Rachel. I mean, I really do miss Rachel. I really kind of I would like her to come back soon. Where we have another plot line going on with the actual Titans. And then maybe Red Hood is like doing something on a heist and he's like remembering his situation. And so we get flashbacks with him while we're still getting another plot line with other characters. I don't think we needed to stop everything to have a whole thing on a flashback. I honestly, I'm going to give a thumbs down for that. I don't think we needed this whole entire episode. I think we needed the flashbacks. I do think we needed the flashbacks. I just don't think we needed a whole episode where nothing else is allowed to happen with any of the other characters or the plot moving forward. This was my issue with season 2. I felt like season 2 dragged on so badly, and there were a lot of episodes where I felt like nothing really happened. And I just don't think you can do that with a show that doesn't have 22 episodes, in my opinion. Solomon, thanks for joining us in chat, Solomon. Solomon saying, I'm over watching Gotham 2.0. When I wanted to watch Titans. I hope we will see Themyscira with Rachel and Donna instead of more Gotham. I agree with you, Solomon. I was just saying, where is Rachel? Where is Donna? We got to see Donna. We did get to see Donna, but she was in connection to Jason Todd's story. For whatever reason, she appeared in his dreams and his nightmare about saying he had more time. Was that really Donna? Because she's in her own kind of netherworld or something. Who knows? But we got to see her for a split second. But this was really a Jason Todd episode. And I agree with you. I think this is Gotham 2.0 so far. And that's why I say that we didn't need that it would have been better not to have a whole episode just on Jason Todd, but him having his flashbacks with something else going on. We got this big bombshell of Calm, Blackfire, being back. She's going to go live in the mansion, in the manor, right? And then we don't get anything on that. We have to wait literally almost 2 weeks to get a continuation on that. Nightwing got shot last episode. I mean, he's fine. He looked like he was fine. But, he got shot. What's happening with him? I mean, that would still be Gotham 2.0, but at least it would be someone who's actually in Titans. I don't know. What's going on with Connor? So many other options, right? Deb is saying, no, we did not need a whole episode of Jason Todd, laugh out loud, although they did show Donna. They did. We got a glimpse of Donna, but in connection to Jason Todd. But I agree with you, Deb. I don't think we needed a whole one. Ray is saying this should have been done over seasons. This transformation to make more sense is so since it was so abrupt, this was not needed. This is what we needed. Yeah. Ray is saying I could go without Hawk and Dove and substitute for any other Titans character. I agree. But I'm not going to lie. In season 1, that Hawk and Dove episode was kind of boss. I admitted it when I was doing reviews for season 1, that Hawk and Dove solo episode. And probably because I didn't realize that I thought we were going to be getting episodes like that for all the characters. Little did I know that they wouldn't allow, they wasn't giving that to all the characters. Starfire, cough, cough. But I actually liked that episode. That was a powerful episode, finding out their backstory and what Hank had went through with his coach and all this other stuff. That was some good stuff. And so episodes like this don't have to be bad. It's just a time and a place. And I just don't think in season 3 with Jason Todd was the time and the place for this. This should have been done. If it's going through the grapevine, that Red Hood's going to get his own season, this could have been done on his spinoff show or something. Right? I don't know. Ray is asking, are Hawk and Dove even Titans? Well, in this universe, they were the first Titans. Hawk and Dove were were some of the first Titans. There was a team that Nightwing was a part of, or Robin when he was Robin, before Starfire and Raven and Guard came along. So, they were part of that. Solomon saying, it's a bad habit for Titans to give a character backstory when the story evolves. We got a Superboy episode right after Jason fell off the building. Exactly. It's like almost like a mid-season break episode, it feels like, but it's silly because how do you have a mid-season break episode when you only got 13 episodes? And yeah, they did that last season. We got a whole Connor episode and it was like, oh, what's going on with Jason? He just fell off a building. But yes, let's focus on Connor. Yeah, so there's that. My other thing that I ask you all is, and let me know in the replay in the chat, do you think Red Hood is redeemable at this point? You watched the episode, you saw what backstory they were giving, all of this stuff that happened. Do you think this character should have a redemption arc? Or do you think they've kind of botched that? At least in this iteration, at least in this season, it ain't happening on this season. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'm curious about that. Now, my opinion is I think any character can be redeemable short of them being like someone who has like done SA, assault or something like that. I don't think that's redeemable or whatever. Although there have been some soaps that try to do that, some soap operas. I think it depends on how it's written. I think one, you have to have a character and an actor that is really, that is really, about that. And, like if that's the case, you have to have them compelling. And I use this example. I think Red Hood can be redeemed. I don't think this episode achieved that. I don't think this episode was an episode that I would look at and say, yes, let's have Red Hood. Give me that spinoff. I can't wait to see Red Hood and the Outlaws and, blah, blah, blah. This was not that episode. And Jason Todd, to me, has not grown up enough for me to want to do that. And this was the problem, how I felt like they botched this, because when Robin, as Jason Todd originally dies, he doesn't come back for, wasn't it some years? It was some years. He grew up. He was young when he died and he came back a man, he grew up. He was his own person. And I feel like Titans is trying to do a thing right now where they are doing a thing where they are showing us maybe him becoming the man on Titans. This is my problem with that, though. This ain't his show. So I don't want to see him grow into a man if he's not on the Titans team. Now, if he's on the Titans team, okay, let him have that and also tell other people's stories. But if you're going to have it so you want him to grow into a man in the sense of like an adult, not a man, like an adult, like he becomes his own person. I don't think you can do that on this show. And I don't think you can do it in one episode. And if that's the crux of his spinoff, him growing up and trying to find out who he is on his own, fine. I am okay with that. You can't do it on Titans. There's too many other characters that the people who actually watch Titans for the Titans, as Solomon pointed out, who we want to see. Right. And I just think Red Hood Jason trying to go on this journey to grow up, it's going to suck up too much air, and honestly, we've already gone through another Robin doing the same thing, right? That's what Grayson's character did. He was under Batman's shadow. He finally gets to a point to become who he wants to be. Of course, that wasn't done as well as it could have been. In the comic books, it was a whole thing before he became Nightwing, where he was really deep in thought and had to really think of himself. And he finally does away with the Robin suit. And it's such a dramatic thing for him to do that in the comics. And this was a little anticlimactic in the show, but it happened. He did away with that and he became Nightwing. So we already went through that, And Thank you, Ray. I don't know. I'm thinking about doing a real Halloween. Who knows? Twisted, you could pull off that new Starfire outfit and it can be fly as F. Maybe. Thank you, though. I appreciate that. Yeah, so and Ray is also saying, I really wish we had Bumblebee, but we already have 2 people of color characters, so I know that's not going to happen, right? They got a quota for us. There's only but so many of us they can allow on these shows. But yeah, I think we've already gone through this kind of narrative with a character, and that was Dick Grayson. I don't think we can do that again with Jason. And I'm already a little annoyed that we spent so much time doing it with him, and that to the point where he had to get a whole episode of a backstory of that. So, but with that said, I do think he is redeemable. I think there's a good chance that he can be redeemable. In fact, shows where a character is absolutely horrible and then somehow becomes an anti-hero usually can work really well. I mean, did we not have that show Hannibal for a couple of seasons where they literally took Hannibal Lecter and gave him a show? I think it was on NBC. And people love that show. I mean, it got cut off, I think, in season 3 or season 4, but people love that show. And I'm going to use the example of maybe one of the best shows for an anti-hero that I have ever, in my opinion, one of my favorite shows, one of my top favorite shows ever for an anti-hero, a character that was so vile and did so much crappy stuff to so many people that most of her show was about her atoning for it. Xena Warrior Princess. Now, this might just be because Lucy Lawless is amazing, but that was a character who I kid you not, it seemed like every other episode we were finding out some really crappy things she did with people. Like, oh my gosh, like, like killing women and children. That's how she got Callisto. She created Callisto. She killed her parents. And then, Callisto wants to kill her. Like, Xena did some messed up stuff to the point where one would argue that, I mean, if this was today, people would be like, there's no way I'd watch a Xena show after everything she's done, crucifying people, blah, blah, blah. And she's probably considered perhaps one of the best anti-hero / hero characters in major pop culture. So it is totally doable. You just got to know how to do it. I would argue that Xena, the series, was better than the Hercules series, to be honest. It was more complex. It was better written. And it was just really well done. And so it can be done. You can have a Red Hood show. Even after everything he's done, you can do it because they did it with Xena and it was epic. She was a horrible person. Xena was horrible. when she had, and her show had so many flashbacks of the bad stuff she did. Every episode, I'm like, I love you, Lucy. I love you, Xena, but yeah, you kind of deserve Caesar crucifying you just now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there were things where it's like she had to go through stuff. It's totally doable, but you got to know how to write it. And you got to give her own show. There's no way we could have had a Xena redemption had she stayed on Hercules, right? She got the spinoff because they knew they had to do a spinoff to tell that story correctly. Also because it did well. I mean, I think Xena stayed on longer than Hercules. And probably, I think, started to overtake Hercules when it came to the ratings. Because that show Xena was amazing. So it's totally doable. Ray is saying, yeah, I feel you. Xena was a more dynamic series than Hercules. Hercules was very black and white. And Xena was such a horrible woman. It took the whole series to redeem herself, like my entire childhood. Exactly. It took years for her to get to a point. She had a kid. She fell in love a couple of times. A lot of stuff happened, but it was okay because you can do that. You got to give it the space. Red Hood's plot line, in order to truly redeem him, is too big for this show. You can't do it on Titans. You're not going to get there. But I also don't want a whole season of hinting that eventually he's going to go off and try to become his own man. I don't need a whole season of that. I don't need him sucking up this much air on this show. I really don't. I can't say the one plus is that it does seem, because although I don't agree with it for Red Hood in the sense that he's also being used by yet another person, I do appreciate that they've kind of staked the claim that Crane, Scarecrow, is kind of the big bad in this sense. Scarecrow is pulling a lot of strings when it comes to a lot of this stuff. Jason is somewhat a glorified henchman, and that Scarecrow has probably did all that to Jason, set up Jason to get killed by Joker so that Batman would go over the edge, because he probably figured out what would get to Batman / Bruce Wayne. And even though Jason Todd couldn't appreciate how much Bruce clearly loved and cared for him, I feel like Crane understood that and used it against Bruce to eventually get Batman out of the picture, because he did understand that Bruce truly does care for the people he's brought under his ward. And so he used Jason Todd. Jason Todd is being used by Crane. So I do appreciate the fact that it's very clear that Scarecrow is kind of the big bad, or not the big bad, but he's the one pulling the strings, basically. What that's going to mean, I don't know. I will say that I feel like there was a little bit of a bait and switch when it comes to the show this season, because we were told leading up to season 3 that the main crux of this season would be Blackfire as the villain and a lot of focus on Corey. That has not happened, y'all. We got one episode and we had to share it with Nightwing and Red Hood and Scarecrow. And then we got a whole Jason Todd thing. So I'm calling foul right now. I'm calling foul because if they don't switch this around, or if somehow Scarecrow doesn't end up being somewhat connected to Corey and Calm somehow, either they need to wrap up this Scarecrow thing, or they need to combine it, because right now we were promised a more focused on, Corey, Blackfire plot line that would overarch with everybody for season 3. And I'm not seeing it, y'all. But let me know in the comment section, also in the chat, if y'all agree with that or not, because right now I'm feeling like, I'm not going to say I was lied to. I'm not going to say they lied. I'm going to say it's already episode 5. And this is seeming very much, like Solomon pointed out, Gotham 2.0 with a dash of Titans. And that's not what we were told. We were told that we were going to get some Starfire, Blackfire action. And thus far, we've only gotten a snippet of that, and it's already episode 5. So either they're going to have to tie up this Gotham Red Hood Scarecrow mess in another episode or 2, or it needs to connect eventually to whatever's going on with Corey and Blackfire. That's my opinion. Let me know if you agree or not. Ray is saying the problem is the character is so popular, they kind of ish themselves with this character because they transformed him into Red Hood, and that deserves storytelling. It should have been done off camera. I agree. I think they dropped the ball. I think they were trying to rush to get a spinoff of Red Hood, and I don't think they thought it through on what they would need for that, unfortunately. To me, they got to work on that. So, but yeah, so far, I mean, there's not much else to talk about with Jason Todd, because it was nothing with this Jason Todd with Titans. Oh my gosh, forgot the name of the show. Titans this episode, because there was only one plot line. It was a total flashback, had nothing to do with anything else going on in the show except Jason Todd's emotional trauma. So, yeah. Highlights is that I appreciated that they did deal with the question of PTSD and things like that. I do feel like they're using it a little bit as a crutch. I always question when shows talk about mental health and things, because I sometimes feel like shows use it in a way that's a little gimmicky. I don't think they've done that with him so far, but I really hope they follow through in kind of just wrapping up this story in a way that doesn't put a stigma on it. Hey, Zach, thanks for joining us, and love your old school horror, old school Hulk poster in the back. Yes, that's my boy too. I'm a Batman girl, and I love me some Incredible Hulk. That's my boy. I like the Joker too. He's back there. There's a Catwoman one that y'all can't see, but I got my Catwoman here as well. I'm a comic book reader. I read it. I'm more horror than anything else, But that's probably why I like Batman and the Hulk, because they both, you know, Hulk's kind of a monster. Batman is a literal bat, and is a big bat. So it aligns. But thanks, Zach. But yeah, y'all. I mean, there's not much else to say. I hope next week is a little bit more balanced when it comes to, and I hope we see a little bit more of Corey and Calm and what's going on with that, Connor and Gar. I hope we see Rachel and Donna soon. It is 13 episodes, y'all. Episode 6 is halfway through. That's not good. Like, I don't know what's happening here. It's almost seeming like it's kind of aimless again. Season 2 felt like this, where it felt aimless. They were all in their own little world, and there was this little, you know, the whole thing with Deathstroke. Season 1 felt like it had a name. I'm not so sure about this season, and I just couldn't. I didn't like season 2, so we'll see. Ray is telling me it was a bait and switch. Girl, this was a bait and switch, a lie. Not bad as He-Man and Revelation shenanigans, but still a farce. Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, maybe they did lie to us. I thought I was going to get a lot of Starfire, Blackfire, intergalactic battle here, and all we've seen is Gotham and a whole Jason Todd episode. Edward, thanks for joining us. Edward's asking, how do you feel about the season so far, above or below expectations? Well, like I've been saying, you know, I really enjoyed the episode 3, and I really enjoyed episode 4. Episode 1 and 2 was solid enough. Episode 3, oh my gosh, was heartbreaking. I didn't think I'd be that heartbroken about Hank, but I was. I liked the character. Out of Hank and Dawn, I liked Hank better, and I wanted him to stay around. But I guess that was their way of getting rid of the characters, because that actor who plays Hank got a new show coming out. Congratulations to him. He's a great actor. And I think Dawn, the actress that plays Dawn, Minka Kelly, is going to be on Euphoria on HBO Max. So they're both moving on, it seems. So I guess they needed a way to get rid of Hank and Dove, and which is a long cry from in season 1. At the end of season 1, we thought they were going to get a spinoff, but it never came into fruition. So with that said, Edward, I enjoy this show so far. I think honestly, Jason Todd episode, the Lazarus episode, as connected to the rest of the season, is probably one of the weaker ones. It was fine in terms of what they were trying to show, but in terms of the dynamic, in terms of, I felt like the upward thing they were going on, I felt like this stalled it. And I just think they need to get out of the habit of having these flashback episodes that don't really reveal much of anything and just are kind of character introspection, because they've done this a lot. They did this in season 1 and season 2. And I just hope that we get back to the action. I think season 3 has a lot of potential, though. I do. I think season 3 has a lot of potential. And so I'm hoping that I am not disappointed. I did not care for season 2 at all. I love season 1. Did not care for season 2 at all. But I have hopes for season 3. So let me know. What are your thoughts, Edward? Let me know in the chat, some of y'all, what are your thoughts? And also in the replay as well. Are y'all liking season 3 so far? Or do you think, you know, this is kind of disappointing? Did you expect more and you're getting less, is the question. Ray is saying, I was really only looking forward to Donna and Blackfire this season, but I feel like Donna back in the picture is going to be the finale, probably. Ray is also saying it feels like it just started, but if you look at the critiques then below, because so many storylines are hanging in the balance. And no, yeah, Ray, they're not getting a spinoff because both of them are going. And Zach is answering the thing about Batman and Hulk and saying, yeah, me too. Batman is my favorite DC hero, and the Hulk is one of my favorite Marvel heroes. Batman, I think, represents what most of us would like to be, and Hulk represents deep down what in all of us. Very, very wise words, and pretty much my thoughts exactly. Which is why I felt and I want to know y'all thoughts. I know I've been talking about this, but am I wrong in feeling like, aside from this episode, that's the one highlight of this episode, is that they gave Batman, Bruce, a bit more They gave him a bit more of a complex in the sense of like complexity, right? And I felt like in the first 3 to 4 episodes, they were just kind of trashing him. More so the first 3 episodes, they're kind of trashing, or in the fourth one, they're kind of trashing Batman. And I'm just like, what characterization is this of Batman? Can we not? So yeah, I agree with you, Zach. Deb is saying it was nice to see how Jason went so dark, but not a whole boring episode. It was 6/10 for me. Definitely. Jeff is saying, thanks for joining us in chat, Jeff. Jeff is saying he looks like a child cosplaying as Red Hood. The helmet is too big for his tiny frame. I cannot buy him as Jason Todd. Should have been a 5-year time skip between death and return. You know, and I have seen that, Jeff. I've seen people have those same thoughts. I don't really have an issue with his body frame or anything, because I know there's also this tightrope where some people are kind of, you know, if you bring that up, some people kind of consider that body shaming, and it's a whole thing. You know, the interwebs is rough out there. You got, you know, the interwebs, it's a crazy place in terms of what people say and what people can say and things like that. It's not, for me, it's not so much his frame or anything. It's just the Jason Todd character hasn't grown enough to be, to me, what Red Hood became. I was talking about this earlier. Red Hood is like Ray had pointed out in the chat a little earlier, Red Hood is a rebel with the cause, or at least he eventually becomes that. And I just feel like he didn't grow enough to have that happen. He just got thrown into the Lazarus pit and he's awake again. And it's like, wait a minute, but he's still that guy who isn't thinking clearly, which is also why he is under Scarecrow's, you know, manipulation. And I'm like, that's not Red Hood. Red Hood's his own person. And so there needed to be a time skip. I totally agree with you on that, Jeff. There definitely needed to be a time skip. Salman is saying, I see it too. At times it seems like the show writers resent Batman. Thank you. I don't know what that's about. I feel like it's almost kind of like they want to be Gotham, but they want to do it on their own terms. And so they want to like get rid of Batman to do it or something. I don't know. It's like they want to draw on Batman viewers for some reason, but in a way that doesn't really pay the respect to the Batman character. Then again, my whole feeling is you don't need to draw in the Batman viewers because Titans is popular in and of itself. So I don't really understand why they don't trust that Titans is a popular show and are popular characters by themselves. They really just don't seem to be about pushing that. Ray is saying Batman is a dark character using fear to keep the city in order by creating worse monsters. Ray, I think you're a Batman hater, Ray. You've been talking kind of greasy about Batman for a few episodes now. So I don't know. I think you're a little biased. Think you're a little biased. Ray is saying, "Lo, that ain't body shaming. He know Bat Ben Affleck when it comes to Jason Todd and the character." No, I mean, listen. I won't go on record saying I agree or disagree with y'all about. All I'm saying is when I always imagine who would play Red Hood at the time, some years ago, when Under the Red Hood, the animated movie came out, which is about Red Hood. Jensen Ackles from Supernatural was playing the voice. And I had always imagined if they had a live action that Jensen Ackles would play Red Hood at that time. This is some years ago. So not saying I don't think that the actors playing him now can't, but I did have a little bit of a different kind of view of what Red Hood would look like. I'll admit that. But yeah. Edward is saying, so Bruce ended up killing Joker for nothing. Well, Edward, yeah. Yes, pretty much, yes. There's no Joker in this universe. He is dead now. And yeah, he did. Because if we remember, for those who know the Red Hood story, Red Hood comes back. One of the reasons why Red Hood comes back and he's so angry is because he believes that Bruce/Batman did not avenge his death the way he should have. He wanted him to kill Joker for him. And when he didn't, Red Hood became bitter over that. And, he's a little deranged and stuff. So when you made it so that Batman kills Joker, but Jason still comes back as Red Hood, yeah, that's no longer a factor. But then again, they gutted that anyway because they made it so it was all about Crane's manipulations. So I think they took away one of the main aspects they could have used for some reason. So there's that. Zach is saying, it's like they've been trashing Batman ever since they made that Batwoman show where they had her trash him from the beginning. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's an easy punching bag. No one ever does this to Superman. I feel some type of way. Superman never really gets trashed by any of this like Supergirl and none of them like that. But Batman, anybody he's kind of like, they always have to say some negative stuff about him. It's weird. I don't know why that's a thing. Ray is saying, didn't Joker kill Catwoman? Wait a minute. I don't think so. Isn't Catwoman still alive? I didn't hear that part. Maybe I missed that. So yeah, y'all. Those are my thoughts thus far. Chauncey, please. Do you mean review, Ray? Review the old ways on Netflix horror series? I'm looking at it. It looks very interesting. And I think it's like a Native American indigenous thing, isn't it? I'm looking into it for sure. I'm definitely thinking to do it, y'all. That and Clickbait, the other show. But anyway, to stick real quick on Titans, those are my thoughts. I hope we don't have another flashback episode. At least I'll take a flashback episode if it's Corey and Calm on their home planet. Give me that flashback episode. That should have been the flashback episode we got, not this one. I want a flashback episode of them on tomorrow, on their planet. Okay, y'all. I didn't need Jason Todd, but I didn't hate it. I don't hate the fact that we had a flashback episode. I do think Red Hood is redeemable. I'm not particularly caring for this origin story that they decided to do for Red Hood. I think there needed to be a time jump for Jason Todd. I think they rushed it. I think if anything, maybe he should have gotten killed at the end of this season, and then his spinoff is 3 years or so in the future or something like that. I think they need to figure this out, because if they are, what I'm hearing through the grapevine, if they are thinking about doing a Red Hood spinoff, I think they got to come stronger than what they're doing right now, because I really don't think it's that justified. And I don't know how many people would be down for it. I mean, he is a popular enough character, but I think a lot of people who love his character are actually kind of not feeling the way that DC Universe or this live action decided to portray him. Jay, thanks for joining us in chat. Jay is saying, I don't love how Scarecrow is behind Red Hood. The comic run was much better. I agree. I was saying this earlier, Jay. Red Hood is his own person to a certain degree. And it seems like the way they portray Jason Todd is he went from being really dependent on Bruce to really dependent on Nightwing to then back to being dependent on Bruce. And now he's very much dependent on Crane. And so I don't mind that Scarecrow's kind of seemingly, he's looking like the big bad this season, even though they told us it was going to be Blackfire or something to do with Corey. I just think that's not how they should have done it when it came to Red Hood. And yes, how did Scarecrow get access to a puddle of the Lazarus pit? Yeah, there's questions. Convenient for the plot line. That's what it sounds like, y'all. But yeah, y'all, if you haven't already, please do give this video a like, feed the algorithm monster, let people know about it and things like that. That helps. Yeah, he's a puppet. And I mean, if you are someone who likes Red Hood, the whole idea was that he came back and became his own kind of person, for better or worse, depending on what iteration, because he did do some questionable stuff when he came back initially, but it wasn't just because someone else was pulling the strings. And I feel like Jason Todd is still broken, even as Red Hood. He's still broken. And but I don't think Titans is the show to fix him. I think they need to give him his spinoff and let him do it there. That's my honest opinion. Thanks, Jay. So glad you're reviewing this show. Love your reviews. Thanks. I appreciate it. And, I'm a comic book fan. So, as y'all can see. So I definitely am digging into it. But yeah, y'all, that's my thoughts. I'm looking forward to next week because it seems like we're back in the present. We're back in dealing with the Titans as a whole, and we see where things go. But yeah, let me know in the replay comment section down below. What are your hopes for the rest of this season? We are nearing almost pretty much the halfway way of this season, right? So let me know, what do you want to see for the rest of this season? What do you want to see more Red Hood, or and what characters do you want to see more of? Let me know. I'm really curious to see what you all are thinking about this, and what you want to see for the rest of season 3 when it comes to Titans. I know what I want to see. I want to know what y'all want to see, and we'll talk about it next week. But to answer your question, yes, Rachel is going to make. Jay is asking, do we know if Rachel is going to make an appearance? Yes. The actress has filmed. She has been on set. The question is, when will we see her? You know, we are supposed to see Rachel. Rachel is supposed to return. The question is when. We don't know. Hopefully it's not like episode 10. I'm going to be so peeved if it's episode like 10 and 11 that she comes back. Bring her back in the 7th or 8th episode. In fact, bring her back next week. One can hope, y'all. All right. So if you have any further questions, y'all, let me know in the replay. I'll try to answer them for next week. But until then, y'all have a very safe rest of your week. Read some comic books because comic books are fun, or watch some horror movies because that's always therapeutic. And until next time, talk to you later.